Miami Hurricanes had already added the top available running back in the transfer portal. Then they go out and add the top available wide receiver from Space City to the Magic City. Sam Brown, welcome to the U.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What a wild weekend it was in the transfer portal. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, also co-host of Locked On ACC. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it's a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. So the Hurricanes, so far, 4 for 5 on those weekend visits was Damien Martinez, the running back, who we are going to talk more about on this episode because we just have a lot to say, quite frankly, and our guest does as well about Damien Martinez. And then it was Jaylen Alderman, the Louisville linebacker. And then it was Dyoni Hill, the Marshall cornerback. And then last night, if you thought Mario Cristobal and Dennis Smith and company were done, Miami gets that commitment from 6'2", 200-pound Houston wide receiver Sam Brown, who should add another cherry on top of that sundae that is the Miami offense. We are joined by, and folks, you've probably seen Jeremy Marks-Peltz. You know him as JMP. You've seen his work all over social media, does awesome film breakdowns of recruits, Miami players, Miami targets. JMP is nice enough to join us. And so, JMP, I know that, like me, you've been scrambling, trying to put out content the last couple of days. I mean, they're doing this to us on a weekend, JMP. We're trying to keep up with all these transfers. How are you?
I'm good, Alex. Crazy weekend. And I'll tell you, normally Mondays, we all know case of the Mondays, a little sluggish going back in. But between the crazy weekend, the portal bonanza, and then hearing you do the welcome to the U, like this is the most pumped I've been for a Monday in quite some time, Alex.
You're so right, man. And that's why, like, usually I'll start a Monday episode, happy Monday if there is such a thing. But it's a happy Monday for, maybe not for Florida State fans as much, but it's a happy Monday for Miami fans today. So, JMP, let's talk Sam Brown. So the first thing, and you notice this with a handful of the players that Miami has been adding right now. In fact, all three of the Sunday commits were players who have previous relationships with current Miami coaches. And in the case of Brown, 2 years ago, where he had his breakout season at Houston, was with Shannon Dawson as his offensive coordinator. What does the film tell you about Brown and how he's going to fit in Shannon Dawson's Miami offense?
Yeah, and just to your point, one of the things that I really like about that connection with Shannon Dawson is I think, not only can Shannon Dawson tell you what kind of player and what kind of person and what kind of program fit Sam Brown is, but also scheme fit because it's a similar air raid offense, not the identical air raid that they ran in Houston, but it's similar. So, he can project how Sam Brown fits within this offense. But I mean, this is a guy that at the very least, I think is an interchangeable part with a guy like Jacoby George, Xavier Restrepo. I'm not saying he is on Restrepo's level, maybe even Jacoby George's level, but he's got inside-outside versatility. Saw him win in the slot. Saw him win as an X receiver, which we know, that was something that whether that was Isaiah Horton or something that they were looking for in the portal. Brown's not like a pure big body X receiver ball winner, but he has one there. He's one as a flanker, so you can put him all over the field. And, I watched the Texas tape was, the one that I really looked at. 4 catches, 80 yards, had really an electric 50-plus yard catch and run where you saw allegedly he's got 4.4 speed. So you saw the open field speed, the ability to make guys miss, the twitch opportunity. I think he's got some places to grow. He did. I had him for 2 drops in that game, including actually I believe it was the first play that Houston ran. It was a deep shot. Ball was underthrown, but he went up, tried to body catch it, couldn't bring it down to his body. So some things that certainly he can still work on, but I just think he is a seamless fit. I like the idea, Alex, of kind of interchangeable parts in this air raid offense where you can put guys in different places along the formation. And ultimately, a lot of these concepts are to just get receivers open, whether it's winning matchups or just get them in space. And Sam Brown, I think, is, a perfect fit to do that.
Yeah. And I think to your point, they're trying to, and this is on both sides of the football, but especially on offense, they're really trying to surround Cam Ward, with as much proven talent as possible. And you think about the resume that Sam Brown already has. I saw this stat. It was the guys at Inside the U who put out this stat, which is pretty remarkable. So a couple things now on Miami's receiving core. Okay. The Hurricanes are not, they're the only team now in the ACC that has 3 wide receivers who all produced at least 500 receiving yards last year. No other team in the ACC has that. In Miami's case, they've got 3 receivers who all caught at least 800 receiving yards last season. With Jacoby George was over 800. Sam Brown at Houston was over 800. Restrepo was over 1,000 last year. And I'm also JMP. I'm also very high on Isaiah Horton. And not to say I'm not high on the young guys, but again, the young guys don't have as much experience. So, Horton is the guy that, I had him penciled in as a starter after spring football. Do you think now Sam Brown, you talked about the interchangeable thing, but do you expect him to be a starter now at Miami?
Yeah, I think that in those 3 receiver sets, and I think, Miami likes to run a lot of 11 personnel, 3 receivers, 1 tight end. I think Brown probably is one of those 3 receivers. Now, Horton got on the field quite a bit last year, and he is a much better player, as you said, looked a lot better in the spring game. So, yeah, I expect him to get some reps. I expect, the younger guys, particularly a JoJo Trader, Nikar, that have been here throughout the spring. But, yeah, my guess, and look, we know with Mario Cristobal, nothing is given, everything is earned. But when you're a Sam Brown and you've got a bunch of other offers and you had a visit to Texas A&M, I think I'm not going to say, there was a promise given to him, but I'm sure that there's a projection of you come here, you're probably going to start. And I also think, Alex, here's, you've talked about it. Here is the theme of this season and the way that Miami is treating the portal. They are all in. I know that, typically speaking, we like to see the younger guys develop. I don't think you see that be prevalent as much in today's college football with the portal. But then you take Miami, and they know that Cam Ward is probably the best quarterback that they've had, maybe since Ken Dorsey. They know that, whether there's internal pressure, external pressure on this coaching staff to take that big step up, this is a special all-in season. And I think with all of these moves, including wide receiver, Zay Horton could be a really good number 3 option. JoJo Trader, Nikar, these guys could flash. But if there is a better number 2 or number 3 option in the portal, Miami is going to go after them. Maybe that's not the case in 2025 and beyond, but with Cam Ward, that is the case in 2024.
And part of that all-in approach, of course, was adding Damien Martinez, who at the time when he signed with Miami a couple days ago was not only the top available running back, the top available player in the transfer portal, period. I want to break down his impact with JMP. Jeremy Marks-Peltz is with us. Folks, we're only getting started. You want to keep it locked right here on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Guys, I'm having so much fun on Monopoly Go. It's like I had to try to put the phone down yesterday because there was so much happening in the transfer portal, but there was also so much happening with my bank heist and everything I was up to on this app. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. Hilarious emojis for taunting your friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own mini games that are unique, like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There is always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. It's game on with Monopoly Go. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hey, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? You have to turn down that volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are joined by JMP, Jeremy Marks-Peltz, ESPN 106.3, and does awesome breakdowns on his X handle, which you see right there on Instagram. So, JMP, I'm sure you've had a lot of fun the last couple of days, really the last couple of weeks, ever since he's been a target, breaking down Damien Martinez, right? This is a true featured back, first team all Pac-12 last year with Oregon State. What are some things you've noticed about Damien Martinez that you think Miami Hurricanes fans, because I know a lot of people out there probably didn't watch that much Pac-12 after dark last year. What can Miami fans expect from Damien Martinez?
So the first thing, Alex, is, and it reminds me a little bit of Cam Ward. Like when I was looking at quarterbacks in the portal last year, like with Cam Ward, he was just at a different level than not just the other quarterbacks available, but the quarterbacks that have been at Miami for the past couple of decades. Damien Martinez is a different dude than what Miami has on the running back roster. And, I think Miami has a type at running back. And the sizes vary. Mark Fletcher is completely different, is built completely different than AJ Allen, but they like these quick, twitchy running backs. They run a lot of inside zone. So they like their running back. They run almost everything out of the shotgun. At least they did last year. They did that in the spring games. So they like their running backs to just go downhill, make one cut, and get positive yardage. And Damien Martinez certainly can do that. And I mean, this guy, he runs with power. He's elusive. He makes guys miss in short areas. He runs guys over. He's got an incredibly built lower half. He's twitchy. I like the way that he uses blocks and sets up vision, and then sometimes can, read leverage once he makes that first guy miss. The thing that is interesting, and I do think that Martinez is scheme versatile. I think he can work in any scheme. But almost everything that I saw on tape from 2 or 3 games that I watched, everything was first and second down, under center with Oregon State. A lot of, 2 tight ends, power runs. They ran outside zone a lot, which are it's similar to inside zone, where the offensive line is moving in unison, but they're moving laterally, kind of try to stretch the play out wide. A lot of gap scheme runs with, linemen pulling. They ran, what's called pin and pull, where you'd have a tight end or wide receiver be responsible for, the kick out block on the edge defender. And then you'd have, whoever the big offensive lineman is that's uncovered, go out in space and just crush, linebacker or safety, whoever's in their way. And by the way, now Oregon State, their right tackle, Talise Fuaga, just got drafted in the first round. So, I mean, maybe smart strategy. I'm interested to see, because again, Miami, they ran very little under center, and they ran mostly the same couple of schemes, in terms of their blocking schemes. Do they run more under center with Martinez? Do they run more of those power schemes? I actually think this offensive line might be a little more suited to be more diverse than they were last year. And so I don't think that's necessarily going to be an adjustment for Damien Martinez, but I do think it is a little different flavor, along with the fact that I just think, even with Mark Fletcher, even if he comes back this year, I think Martinez is the best running back on this roster.
Yeah, and you touch on something that we talk a lot about with Fletcher is that right now I just don't know. I know that at times we've gotten very optimistic updates that he could be ready for fall camp, which obviously would mean ready for the opening game. Some people, wonder, hey, it's a tricky injury. How long is this going to take? So, but if Miami can get Fletcher back sooner rather than later, what a luxury JMP that would be to have. And yes, Miami does have, as you mentioned, other talented running backs on the roster, but if you could have like a 1-2 punch at the top with Martinez and Fletcher, watch out.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And, in the past, people will talk about thunder and lightning combinations, and you like the two running backs that, you the small, quick guy and the big, powerful guy. Personally, to me, and especially in this scheme, I like running backs, just like we were talking about the last segment, receivers that have similar skill sets. Like, the idea of Martinez and Fletcher, who have similar games, you have Martinez that starts, and he is a powerful running back that wears down defenses. And if he gets a blow, Mark Fletcher comes in, and Mark Fletcher is a powerful running back that is going to wear down defenses. And you have a powerful offensive line, and the way that Miami wants to play, which is third and fourth quarter, they're just playing, along with all of Cam Ward's skills. But when they're running the ball, bully ball line of scrimmage, it's just that part of it is really exciting. Besides the skill level, just the fact that, these two guys can just wear down defenses just by their physical stature.
Now, I know that if my guy, the truth teller, is watching this, and I'm sure he's going to, he's going to be on the show tomorrow, he's saying, hey, this is all great, guys. You could talk about Martinez and Sam Brown. Where are the defensive tackles is what he's going to say. And so, all right, JMP, so there is at least one visit that's starting today, Simeon Barrow from Michigan State. Now, the plan was to get Barrow and his Michigan State teammate, Derrick Harmon, who I think Barrow has done more on the field. I think Harmon is the higher upside guy. He's younger than Barrow. According to Gabby Urruti at 24/7 Sports, we're not actually sure if Harmon's going to make it down for the visit. That would be not a good sign. I mean, maybe they reschedule a day. I don't know. But if he doesn't make it down for the visit, that's obviously not a good sign. But Barrow is coming. Just JMP, the importance for Miami to add a defensive tackle. They did add a couple in the previous transfer portal, CJ Clark and Marley Cook, who I like. They just lost Jared Harrison Hunt, who actually signed with SMU. Congratulations to him. He chose SMU over FSU, believe it or not. So
it's the home away from home for all these guys.
That's right. But, with JAH, Miami's going to have to be replacing a lot of snaps because he was going to play a lot this year. Talk about the importance of adding a defensive tackle or two.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I fully believe, and I think every Miami fan, truth teller, everybody else should, have total faith. I'm not saying that they don't, but have total faith in Mario Cristobal. We all know, including the coaching staff, that even before Jared Harrison Hunt entered the portal, they wanted another body, at least for depth, along the interior of the defensive line. Now it is more of a need. They're clearly identifying that position. I have no reason to think that whether it's one of the Michigan State guys or both of them or somebody else, they're going to end up with a potential starter or, defensive tackle. I think you need 3 or 4 starting caliber players just because of all the rotation and the fact that Lance Guidry likes to play both 3-man and 4-man fronts. So it is certainly important. Now, I loved, one of my takeaways from the spring game, and Alex, you were out there obviously for much of the spring, but I thought Marley Cook looked really good. And Marley Cook was a guy that to me had a much better 2022 than 2023. I thought he won, a lot of the matchup against Zach Carpenter. He has that explosiveness. So I think, that's certainly a good thing. We know CJ Clark is stout, whether he's, a 1-gap or a 2-gap defensive lineman. The other interesting thing to me, and this is totally separate from whoever they bring in, Do we see Ruben Bain kick inside? And how often? And when I say that, Ruben Bain, to me, can be just as much of a game wrecker and just as explosive as a defensive tackle as he is as an edge rusher. Now, I think, it depends on how much size, how much weight and muscle, Bain is added. But that does mitigate a little bit. They're still going to get a defensive tackle. They may get two, but I think they also have that ace in the hole because even though they are looking for another edge rusher, I think, they've got a lot of options there, including even like a guy like Marquise Lightfoot, who I think is one of the freshmen that has a chance to get some snaps immediately.
Yeah, this is great stuff here, and hopefully Miami can add a defensive tackle or two. Now, Miami did make a couple of additions on the defense yesterday. There's a new cornerback and a new linebacker, and again, much like Sam Brown, players who have connections to Miami's coaches. So we're going to continue the conversation. We got JMP with us on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. You guys want to keep it locked. And I already know you're keeping it locked to FanDuel. You're winning money. You're having an awesome time on America's #1 sports book. It's playoff time all over the place. Playoff time in the NBA, in the NHL. You've got baseball in full swing now. FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. I love the player props. I love the over-unders, and you can bet preseason win totals. I mean, you see what Miami's adding. If you're guzzling the Kool-Aid now, and the Hurricanes are still at over-under 9.5 wins, okay? So maybe a few days ago, you were thinking it may go under that 9.5. Now you're seeing Damien Martinez, Sam Brown on board. Maybe you want to take a little dive into the deep end of the pool and say over 9.5. All of that is available to you, my friends, at FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. My friends, we are also proudly brought to you by Game Time. This is the only ticket service I use. It's so easy. You download the Game Time app, and then it's all at your fingertips, guys. And Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch with killer last-minute deals. All-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Folks, it's true. The deals get better last minute. I've bought tickets to events morning of the event. Sometimes you can even buy them an hour after the event already started. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, all of that great stuff you love. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. Everydayers, we've been very busy on the Locked On Canes Insiders chat. If you want to try it out, click the link in the show description below. Become a Locked On Canes Insider. You get text messages directly from my phone to yours with transfer portal scoops. I think I've got carpal tunnel with all the typing I've been doing. Recruiting information, practice breakdowns, all sorts of stuff on the Locked On Canes Insiders chat. Try it free for 14 days. If you like it, $4.99 a month. We give you a lot of added value on there on Locked On Canes Insiders. We got the great JMP with us. So JMP, it wasn't just Sam Brown last night or Damien Martinez Saturday night. Miami also had a couple of matinee additions yesterday. Let's start with linebacker Jaylen Alderman from Louisville, who he's got those connections to D. Nick, having played under him at Louisville a couple of years ago. What is the tape showing you on Alderman?
I am really stoked about this one. I looked at linebacker as something that Miami would look to add somebody for depth. And I think Jaylen Alderman, at least in 3 linebacker sets, is going to start. And I think he has a chance to maybe be next to Kiko Mauioga. Maui Noah, the best linebacker on this team. He's got size, 6'1", 230. He's got speed. He's got instincts. He flies to the football. Miami was a better tackling team last year in space than they had the previous few years, but we've seen so many of those like Wile E. Coyote, three guys going after somebody, all running into each other. And, a lot of that is technique. A lot of that is angles. And I'll tell you, Alderman, he's got long arms. There was a play against, I watched, the game against the Canes last year. There was a play where I think it was Burchard. Actually, no, it was Colby Young on a bubble screen. And he's tracking Colby Young. He's got a long right arm, just takes it, clubs him at the, outside shoulder, and then takes the other arm, wraps it along the near hip, which is what you're supposed to do tackling. It was perfect. And I really like how he uses all parts of his body to tackle. He is, I think, a very movable chess piece. He can be an inside linebacker. He can be used on blitzes. He can be used as the, setting the edge setting the edge. There were even plays where he was guarding, the tight end and man. He was guarding the number 3 receiver in zone. So, if you're looking for different ways to get him on the field, even if, Maui Noah is going to get, obviously almost all the snaps and Besaith, you don't necessarily have to have those 3 guys all as inside linebackers. You can have Alderman playing different spots along the field. So I think that was a really, really big addition. The one thing I'd say that, stuck out from a negative is he is super aggressive. The aggressiveness can get himself in trouble a little bit. But look, if that is, again, looking at linebackers getting stuck in the mud in recent years, if that is the biggest knock on him, I think Miami would take that. I really, really like this addition of Jaylen Alderman.
What about Dyoni Hill, the corner from Marshall, who another one, he's got a connection to Chevis Jackson. Well, not only Chevis Jackson, but Coach Jackson was his cornerbacks coach last season in Marshall, and the year prior to that, Lance Guidry, who's, of course, Miami's DC, was his defensive coordinator there. What does the film tell you about Hill? And do you think, is he potentially a starter at Miami or more of a depth piece?
Yeah, I would think probably more of a depth piece. Assuming that, those top 3 corners, I mean, Daryl Porter, I certainly think is going to start. Brown, I certainly think is going to start. One of the interesting things before we go into kind of what Hill brings, from what I watched, the NC State game and the James Madison game, so maybe he did play some slot, but he was an outside corner only. And I was interested to see if who Miami brought in as corner would be somebody that could play the slot, and then essentially you put Powell, as a safety, which I do think is, probably his best position, even though he can play the slot. And I'm not sure this accomplishes that. Maybe Porter, you can play as a slot corner. Maybe that's Powell's, that it's Powell's position. What I saw from him, I think he's a really good tackler. I know some of the Pro Football Focus stats back that up, but he's a guy, 172 pounds. He's wiry, he's thin, but he does a really good job playing through blockers, making tackles. I think his technique is pretty good. His interception against NC State, they were in quarters defense, so dividing the field, he was responsible for a fourth of it. One of the advantages to playing quarters defense is, if you don't have a receiver threaten you vertically on your side, which, on that play, NC State did not. Hill was basically free to be roam around, be a free safety, made a nice diving play on the ball. So he's got that athleticism. I don't know if I saw enough pass coverage to make a full evaluation. I will say that NC State game, he did get beat once on a double move. Still was able to make the tackle to prevent a touchdown. A couple of the James Madison snaps where he played more press. He missed a jam, did recover well on a comeback route to kind of keep it as a moderate 10-yard gain. So to me, you look at those traits, I think it's a depth piece, but I certainly think that he's somebody that's going to see the field. And again, Miami needed at corner at least some depth, and you bring him in, and there's the familiarity, like you mentioned, with Chevis Jackson, even a little bit with Lance Guidry.
Well, folks, you want to support JMP's work because he always puts out unbelievable content. You see where you follow him on X there at JMP1063. You can check him out, ESPN West Palm, and let me know what's the Instagram channel as well. JMP, you're also very active there.
So thanks. It's JMP Football on Instagram, JMP1063 on X, and on TikTok.
Oh, that's right. I still need to check out TikTok. I have never.
Man.
I think I may have created an account. I don't know. Like I feel like I'm getting too old to figure some of this stuff out. But maybe eventually.
There's a lot better content on TikTok than what I put out. So it is worth, especially who knows how long it's going to be around. But it's
right.
It's highly recommended.
I love it. JMP does a fantastic job. Make sure you guys, if you don't want to smash the like button for me, smash it for JMP. Hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Canes. If you're listening to the audio version, fantastic. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. And we will talk to you guys again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.